Black Thrive Haringey was born from a chance meeting with Jackie Dyer, and we agreed to discuss Black Thrive. I think I knew that the work of Black Thrive was really needed in Haringey because of the disproportionality in the mental health figures. Haringey is a deprived borough. In the east of the borough we have multiple deprivation, and that means that it's got a high propensity for mental health. And when you look into who is getting the more severe mental illnesses, we can see that the black community outnumber any other communities.
So I first came into the Black Thrive Haringey space as the event manager for the launch event in March 2022. And I just really fell in love with the cause really and what the whole Black Thrive project was about, and became really passionate about it. When I started to really hear and see about this disproportionality, I just really wanted to address these issues. And I've always known in my life that I wanted to do something that would make some form of change in the world.
How I got involved in Black Thrive Haringey work, we were doing a project called Home Cooked, which was in the Tottenham Hale ward. And I met Lynette Charles, jumped into doing a mental health first aid training course, and then fell in love with the work that Mind in Haringey were doing. And then I was introduced to Black Thrive because Black Thrive Haringey was just about to launch, and we wanted to make a film, or should I say Lynette wanted to make a film on a young man by the name of Courtney Brown. We did his film, produced his film, which was called Me, My Father and Mental Health. And through that work, Black Thrive Haringey was launched at Tottenham Town Hall. And then the rest is history. I mean, I fell in love with the project, I fell in love with the staff, I fell in love with the mandate and the work that Black Thrive were doing. And I wanted to be part of that change. A lot of the work that I do in Black Thrive Haringey is the community kind of work, reaching out to the community because of my kind of long-standing relationship with the community and its members. And then Shannon, on the other hand, she's the one that does these wonderful, spectacular events, and she makes them look all glitzy and glamorous. And then collaboratively, you know, we shape the strategy of what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, how we're going to achieve it, who we're going to involve. We can carve out what the year looks like.
When we think about systemic issues, I think we can look across the board at some of the systems such as education, housing, mental health, employment. And what we see when we look at those different parts of our systems is that disproportionately black people are at the lower end of our expectations.
I was born in this place, in this borough. I grew up in this place, in this borough. I had lots of issues with authorities in this place and in this borough because of racism. I was one of those young ragamuffin rebels back in the day. That means I fought for what I believed in. And then I tried to find other ways to try to make change. And those ways of trying to make change rather than just fighting the system, which I still do, is about trying to hold the system to account for the nature of the systemic racism that we face. I'm born in this country, but I don't feel a part of this country because it's inherently institutionally racist. It's built on colonial and imperialistic history that it totally denies at all times. It's a system that's been created to look down on people who look like me, to criminalize us, and ultimately to put us under the kind of pressure and strain that leads to people having mental health. I come to this work as somebody who wants to hold the system to account, correct the system so that it causes less harms in our community.
The stories that we've told are stories that have been very well known in the communities. But I think we wanted to really bring that to the audiences with short, concise films that really speak to the hearts and minds of those in our community. And I think through that, you get the community as one. And in doing that, the community open up, they share knowledge, they share stories, they share love, they share kindness. So it's very important. It's very important for me. Well, what we've learned through doing storytelling is that, firstly, the community want to hear more. Secondly, we've seen the feedback, what the community have provided us with after we've had our events and held our events, and they're blown away. They like what we're doing. They want to see more. They want to understand more. Where they don't have knowledge of certain stories or situations, they come to one of our events. You have a screening, you have a panel, you have a discussion. They're involved, and they really like being involved. We've been screening in schools, in colleges, in sixth forms, in theatres, i.e. cinemas. We've cast the net very, very wide.
So my journey into the storytelling element of the work was really interesting because officially when we first made Me, My Father and Mental Health, I wasn't officially on the team yet. But when we started Me, My Music and Mental Health, a story by SHOCKA, I was given the honour by Anton and the filming team to actually be able to come on as production assistant, and just seeing these stories come together in real life from the initial concept and then being on set throughout these docufilms and just seeing everything come together. I was actually able to come up with the questions and just make sure the person there who's telling their story feels comfortable, and just being a part of that whole team was just such a brilliant experience, and honestly I've fallen in love with the whole storytelling process. Seeing these storytelling pieces come together, whether it be Me, My Music and Mental Health, or even Sickle, or our new docufilms as part of Project Heal, has just been so amazing. I just think there's something really special about being able to tell people's stories via film. I know it makes people be able to connect to people's stories and really feel the things that people go through. I also feel like storytelling is a great avenue to be able to educate people and destigmatize certain issues, so the average person out there that may just not know about certain stuff, they can actually learn that through our docufilms.
As a man from Haringey, I feel like it's been important because a lot of the stories that we're directing, I've either had similar situations or seen some of our family members or friends go through similar situations. So anything that I could do to kind of shed light on it or provoke thought for people to kind of sometimes find a way out, or there's other solutions to the problem, then yeah, it's important. So that's what it means to me. It feels like a real responsibility, to be honest. So yeah, it's important that these stories are told by us, because a lot of the time we're the people going through the pain and the trauma and all of these things. And obviously if you have someone else from maybe a different cultural background telling these stories, then there's different examples, there's different types of trauma that some people may resonate with that we won't. So I feel like it's important for us to tell the story and for people like myself to direct the story, and so it has a better reach to our people.
The experience was epic. And what I liked about it the most, working with Black Thrive Haringey, is they dealt with my story with care. And that's so important, because these stories that we're sharing, they're just not regular stories. These are stories about my life. The way they put it together was beautiful. This documentary touched me the most because they dealt with it with so much care. And I saw the documentary they did prior to mine, which made me want to do this one, because I saw how much care they dealt with that one. And it was around the same topic, which is mental health. And that's like us putting our real life experiences out there. So yeah, no, it was a beautiful experience working with Black Thrive Haringey on that documentary.
I think Black Thrive Haringey's work around storytelling has really been important. Although you can look at lots of figures and you can understand that there are vast inequalities between our communities, I think when you hear it from the individual, their actual story about how they've been able to overcome adversity is really important. It's important for other community members to give them hope that they can also overcome adversity, no matter what the system's doing to put barriers in their way.
Whether it be our community assembly events, our film screening events, our community engagement events, or even big events like we've done at City Hall, our Black-led systems change event. We've just been able to curate these amazing spaces that are welcoming and super informative. People really enjoy our events. We always get great feedback, community love to come. Also, something I've seen is that throughout the times when we've been able to hold these events, we've actually been able to kind of grow in a way. We've been able to build new partnerships. We're able to maintain great relationships with our community for events. So I think events have definitely been a key part in all of our work, and just continuing to elevate Black Thrive Haringey in general.
I think what we learned at Black Thrive is that we needed to do more than just open people up in community events to share their sometimes very traumatic stories. So we went about thinking, what could we offer the community in order to give them something or give them some support. It was important to give them something tangible that they could take away from our screenings because of the way that they were affected by our storytelling. So we decided to put our heads together and think if we could come up with something that would be freely available to the Black community to help in their journey to healing.
Project Heal was an initiative that came about really from our understanding that the community needed support in regards to their healing. I believe when you truly start to understand the research and data out there and the statistics and just how much our communities are disproportionately affected across the board, we just really understood the importance of creating a more tangible project to highlight and kind of shine light on the issues that our communities face, but alongside giving something tangible that the communities could take away that could help them on their own healing journey.
With the process of the Project Heal films, we look at the individuals, what they've gone through, and how they've overcome adversity. And then through that, then we look at how we can heal as a community and what tools that we can put in place for the community to get support through the Project Heal app as well.
Our Project Heal docufilms are incredibly powerful stories. The story of Sean Riggs, the story of Mikey Powell. What we hope is that by telling these stories and really letting the community know about the injustice, we can also get the system to look at itself and affect change.
So our Time to Heal app is all about Black healing. It's Black centered. We've made sure that all the contents on the app is Black related. And so our communities are able to go on the app and see people that look like them speaking of things that will help them on their own healing journey. When we initially sat down with the team to think about the elements or the parts of the app, what we wanted to showcase, we all kind of agreed that people have different ways of healing, you know, there is no time frame to healing. I believe it's a journey. So we all sat down and agreed there's little elements that have helped us on our own healing journeys. So things like certain books or videos we've watched or podcasts, daily affirmations, even services, you know? So we really wanted to gather all of this information and put it in one place so anyone in our community could easily just log onto the app and get the help and support they need, get the insights, the information, and educate themselves to aid them on their healing journey. When the app user actually logs onto the app, they're able to answer questions in relation to the things that they faced or that they're currently facing, whether it be challenges or issues or some of the general things they've been through. It's confidential, but also the person's able to actually answer a question about the things they're interested in or things they're struggling with. So our app covers everything from alcohol misuse to trauma to adversities. If the person just wants to log onto the app and see new positive perspectives or they're struggling with their confidence or self-belief, the app actually curates the content based on the person or the user's answers.
I'm really excited by our Time to Heal app because a lot of time was spent ensuring that it was an app that meets everybody's needs. And what we really hope is that it will be a tool for the Black community when they need it to assist in their healing. I think it's really important when we think about research that research is done for our community, by our community. And so it was really exciting to be given the opportunity to work with the NLPC and train up 30 community peer researchers that then went into their community and asked about the experience of the Black community and the mental health system. At the end of our research, we were able to hold an event to launch our report with people from our community, people from the system. It was really important that we gave the report and its findings the platform for people to really understand what the Black community was currently saying about their experiences of the mental health system. This year, we have an exciting opportunity to be working with forensic architecture and Professor Stafford Scott. We're really hoping that we will be able to look into the prone position and the theory of excited delirium.
With forensic architecture, there's just this most amazing human rights agency. They use, it's a science in many ways, right, to try to hold the state and system to account. The best way I can describe it is to talk about the professor who established it. His name is A.L. Wiseman. He happens to be Jewish, born in Israel. He was an architect, and he developed skills that meant that he could go into Palestine and help Palestine communities to prove when the Israeli state had broken their human rights. They can use their techniques to help us to show that in fact the state is responsible for causing many of the harms that we feel in our community and the need to be addressed in our community. I first came across forensic architecture when I was doing the Mark Duggan campaign. The Duggan family had taken the civil action against the police. Even though we'd lost the inquest, they still wanted to prove that the police had acted unlawfully when Mark was killed. And in doing so, the family solicitors asked forensic architecture if they could do a model that helped us to understand what happened to Mark Duggan, even though there were no independent witnesses on the scene at the time. Forensic architecture, because there was a snippet of film available, witness B footage, they were then able to create a whole entire model based on this snippet of film footage, and I encourage everyone to go on YouTube and see it. It's called The Killing of Mark Duggan. When they created that model and it was shown to the police, who had previously said that they won't negotiate, they won't do no out-of-court settlement in this particular case, when they saw the model, they capitulated. So forensic architecture, they'd previously been really involved, although they're based in Goldsmiths University, previously, because of the nature of their organization, because of the researchers and investigators they have worldwide, they're an international body that normally looked at events that took place, state killings, outside of the UK. Now, because of what they did with Duggan, because of the relationship we developed, so what happened is they did the model, the police capitulated, we didn't want to put the model on the shelf, didn't want to put it in cotton wool, so we took the model into Tottenham, into the community, shared it with the community. It really had an impact. As a result of that, forensic architecture asked if I wanted to curate an exhibition at the ICA. Then they gave me an opportunity to become a guest professor of forensic architecture, where I did the War in Babylon lecture series to students who were mainly studying for their masters and such. So that we've found a way that we can carry our story to different groups of people. Working with FA has been an amazing collaboration, a true collaboration, where they've welcomed Tottenham rights in, and we all work to our strengths, and those strengths means we're now able to announce that together we've successfully applied to Wellcome for funding, and we've been successful, and we'll all be working together on this agenda about how we challenge state and hold state to account for certain behaviours. The project that we're doing with forensic architecture, we're calling it Unlearning Excited Delirium. I first learned about excited delirium in post the police killing of Roger Sylvester in January 1999. Long story short, he had a mental health breakdown. And as a result of the breakdown, the police were called to him one day. And you've all heard about George Floyd today, but Roger had 8 police officers, and these police officers, they knew Roger. They were Broadwater Farm beat police officers, so they knew him. They knew this guy was gentle. They knew he was no threat. And still, they treated him like an animal. And what they did to him, I can't repeat on camera, but they took him to St. Anne's Hospital, and in the hospital, in front of hospital staff, 8 of them, for I think it was about 20 minutes. and he died. And we were ragamuffin. We went to Tottenham police station the next day. We was gonna burn that place down. And I say this in the context of Fordwell Farm uprisings. Tottenham, when it erupts, it erupts. And we had the man called Bernie Grant. He was my mentor. He was the first black MP. He promised us that we were going to be able to use the system to get justice for Roger. He promised us. And I'm not dissing Bernie, he tried. The system just wouldn't give us justice. And we went to court, I remember right, after 5 years, they had the court case. It took them, oh God, I think it was about 3 months to give the evidence. And it took the jury 2 hours to come back and say unlawful killing. I mean, that's what we're about, right? And Roger's mum and dad, they're Christian, they weren't even about wanting someone to go to prison. They just wanted accountability. They found the police guilty of unlawful killing. And within a couple of weeks, the police appealed. And then after they did appeal it, I went back to the court. And I heard a judge say in court, and this is about how this is systemic bullshit, how it works. The judge said, I think the jury was confused. I can not see how they could have come to that conclusion. Now, I was confused how the judge decided the jury was confused without talking to the jury to test their ability to take in the information that was presented to them. I, as a layperson, if I appeal, if I want to appeal, the first thing the system says to me is the jury made its decision. The jury heard all the evidence. We don't go behind the jury's back. We can't second guess why the jury did what it did. But when the police appeal, all of a sudden, without even talking to the jury, they just set that aside. 8 police officers, at least 40 minutes at his house and in the hospital, and they blamed this man for his death. They said he died from excited delirium. We were like, what? What? We've heard of all these different ways of dying, but excited delirium, this was a new one, right? Excited delirium, what does this mean? Well, what it means is he worked himself up in such a tiz. If you imagine a bottle of sparkling water and then you shake it up, or Coca-Cola, then you shake it up and then open it and that's what they're trying to say happened to Roger. They're trying to say that he somehow worked himself up into such a tiz, right, that he combusted internally. I feel like, what are you talking about? And then we listened and heard. And it happens, and it seems to only happen to black people. I think only to black men, and it only happens when police officers are in the room. A black man never dies of excited delirium when police officers are not in the room. I couldn't be in the room with my cameraman, right, and walk out the room and phone the police and say, look, the cameraman died of excited delirium. They're gonna arrest me and say I killed the cameraman. They won't know nothing about it. But when it's them, there's this defense. And then they started to change from excited delirium because they know how stupid it sounds. And they started to talk about ABD, acute behavioral disorder. And again, it seems to disproportionately affect black men, black people, and disproportionately. And it seems to only kick in when police officers are in the room. So it's been something that we've always had a great concern about. So when we had an opportunity, the collaboration with FA, and FA started to ask, what do we look at next? It was almost like a no-brainer. So let's have a look at some of the most vulnerable people in our community who die in this manner. And then to do this now, we need to have experts in the field of mental well-being and mental health. We need people who can advocate on behalf of black people who have mental ill health and are in mental health crisis. We need people who work with black community to stop them from going into crisis. And then when you look out and you look across the environment, who is out there? I'm afraid there are not many groups that even understand why it is that black people are even likely to need mental health services, because one size doesn't fit all. And there's lots of organizations out there that are well-meaning, they have no clue the impact of racism on black people on an everyday lived experience. And one thing I know from knowing the people who work at Haringey Black Thrive is they certainly do. The work that I've seen them doing, the work that I've seen individuals from this organisation doing with some of the individuals I know in our local community, really commendable. So for me, it was an absolute no-brainer. We need the advocates of those people on whose behalf we're going to conduct these investigations. And there's no, I mean, this is the simplest question. I took a long time to answer it, but there's no one out there like Black Thrive. And we're really pleased and proud to now be working in collaboration with them, as well as with forensic architecture.
So our stop and search research came out of some work that we started doing a few years ago when we were exploring just a range of different data and statistics around the black experience, particularly in relation to mental health. At the moment, we're trying to create technical tools to enable researchers, civil society and others to have access to stop and search data so that they can use it as a tool for accountability with the police, which is how we're working with Mind in Haringey or Black Thrive in Haringey on this stop and search data to really bring it into community so that they have a neutral source of data. What often happens is data and statistics that black communities are given access to are given to them by the very authorities that they're trying to hold to account. And this creates a kind of problem, a little bit of a dynamic that we need to change. We need sources of data which are kind of distinct from the systems and the authorities that we're trying to challenge. So that's what we're really doing with the stop and search data right now. As we know, there are stop and search monitoring groups. Those stop and search monitoring groups usually get their data from the police. And so they are at a disadvantage because the police can choose what data, what metrics, what statistics they want to present and the ones that they don't want to present. Case in point for that is the London Metropolitan Police dashboard at the moment doesn't have any disproportionality statistics on it, and it hasn't had any disproportionality statistics on it for quite some time. And it's not difficult to do, so that creates a kind of dilemma. So why do we see this? Why is it that the Met Police can't produce disproportionality metrics? And if they can't produce them, maybe someone else needs to step into that role to produce that high quality data, high quality statistics that we need to hold the police to account. So in terms of kind of key patterns and statistics that we've uncovered so far in our analysis of stop and search data for Haringey, what we know is there is a big divide between the east and west of the borough. People who live here will already know that and be familiar with that. The west of Haringey is much more wealthy. I suppose the west of Haringey is the kind of place that you would consider to be a sort of North London elite, if you like, whilst the east of Haringey is Tottenham, it's Wood Green, it's all of the places that we hear about being downtrodden on the news and so on. And what we notice is in the west of the borough, the disproportionality in stop and search is extreme. So in the west, we see things like black people being 20 times more likely to be stopped and searched than white people. And this is really opens up a conversation about policing space. If you think about kind of where the jobs are, where the opportunities are, they are in the west of the borough, but if you're black, it seems that black people are being kind of policed out of that space. We also see that the majority of stop and searches are for drugs, and the majority of those searches end in no further action, which creates essentially a hostile environment for black people in Haringey. In terms of change, our role, our organisation's role, Just Knowledge, is to provide the data infrastructure and data analysis required for social change, but we don't dictate what that change should look like, and we really see our role as supporting communities to challenge for the change that they want to see. We're starting a project soon. Well, we've already started the project with Black Thrive in Haringey, and we're looking forward to opening up some community conversations about what that change should look like and how we can hold the police more to account in Haringey and beyond.
I think research is a key part of the work we do because it really allows us to gather our own data and understand the statistics. So we're able to go to these systems and challenge them directly with the actual factual based knowledge to say we are disproportionately affected in this case. So my hope with all the research that we're doing, whether it's been the research of our past or all the new research we're currently doing, would be for our research to be able to make some actual change, whether that's change to policy or just change the system so the system can start to hold itself accountable about these issues. But I also mainly hope that our communities are actually able to understand these issues so they're well equipped when they need to challenge the system.
The motivation behind creating the film really came from Black Thrive themselves and the work that they produced with SHOCKA's film and with Courtney's film. They invited us up to the Muswell Hill Everyman Cinema a couple of years ago, and I watched those pieces and was touched by them, emotionally touched by them, and it sparked a conversation afterwards that I thought just needed to be shifted into the world of sickle. We saw an opportunity to align with Black Thrive Haringey because the objectives of the two organisations align. We want to give patients a voice, we want to start conversations, and the film is a way of doing that, and it's been successful in doing that. So sickle cell in the UK affects around 17,000 individuals, and that represents the largest genetically inherited disorder within the UK. So that's a disorder that you can inherit, and it's important that people recognise that everybody who's affected, those 17,000, it also affects families, friends, schools, works, so it's a societal issue. And because it can be passed on genetically, although it predominantly affects people of Black African, Black Caribbean heritage, in this area it can affect anyone. So despite the fact that it's the biggest genetic condition within the UK, the resource that's been put into it from the health side is vastly undervalued. So when we think about comparative disorders within the UK that are genetically inherited, cystic fibrosis being the most common example to compare against, they've got hundreds of treatments that they can choose from that are available on the NHS. Sickle cell patients have a handful at best, and that has an impact on the patients and their families. Unfortunately, because of that inequality that's persisted over decades, people have died unnecessarily, and the care still falls way below what the standard that it should be at.
My approach with the sickle docufilm was completely different to the others. The response has been overwhelming. We've screened it in cinemas across London. We've screened it in cinemas and theatres outside of London. We've reached far as Ipswich, Sheffield. We've screened it in auditoriums. We went to Cambridge College Hospital for health days. So I'm not sure exactly how many, but we are now in the thousands of people who have watched the film, and the workshops and the panels after the screenings. It's been amazing. It's been a great success.
Education was a huge part of our sickle docufilm. And I believe that just comes from even when we first started working with Stuart and the Red Cell Network team from the NHS. I remember we went to an event of theirs very initially early on, and I realised at that event that I knew absolutely nothing about sickle, not as much as I should know, especially as it mainly affects our communities. Just seeing and hearing at the event that people with sickle cell actually end up passing away from the negligence or the lack of care when they're struggling or on sickle cell crisis, I just started to really understand that our community doesn't know as much as they should know about sickle cell. Even simple things like our community can actually help towards the cause by giving blood donations. You know, I just don't feel like there's as much information out there. I feel like if you don't have someone directly that you know that's affected by sickle, you don't know a lot about it. So I feel like me and the team ensured with our sickle docufilm that we were able to implement professionals and researchers and those of lived experience and from the community for sure. But we really wanted to make this piece educational. We wanted the average person who doesn't know absolutely anything about sickle cell to sit down and be well equipped and start to really know what this disorder is about and how it affects our community. Sickle's been around for so many years, and these systems are still yet to put some proper funding or research into these things. So my hope for sickle has always been that it's able to shift policy. I hope these systems really start to look at themselves and understand that they haven't been given enough attention to sickle cell disorder, or put in funding into research this condition, or try to give people medicines or cures. So I really hope that it does ignite that change in healthcare professionals, but also in the systems.
The Black Mental Health Manifesto is a crucial element of some of the work that we do at Black Thrive Haringey. So the Black Mental Health Manifesto is a collective of Black professionals that work for various organisations that spent 18 months gathering the evidence to compile a manifesto that requests that the system addresses some of the systematic racism. We hope that the Black Mental Health Manifesto will achieve, or at least some of the recommendations that we have made will be taken on by various government departments, local authorities and professionals. The manifesto makes very clear the things that we believe, if addressed, will change the Black community's experience of this country.
Over the past, I'd say about 18 months, I've been working with Black Thrive Haringey, with Lynette and Shannon, to figure out some of the lessons learned from my own work in Lambeth and see if and how they translate to Haringey. Lambeth and Southwark are known as having some of the highest Black LGBT communities in the country. Similarly, I think Haringey is also in that top 11 for Black LGBT populations in the country. Anecdotally, the work that I've been doing in Southwark, a lot of people from North London have come down and said that they feel that there is a lack of activity, engagement, support around health and wellbeing structures, and would love to have something based in North London. I'm really quite thankful that Black Thrive as a whole and Black Thrive Haringey are actually quite innovative, open and willing to test new things. So after some dialogue, which was actually really quite easy, I've been working with Lynette and Shannon. We've been hosting some working group events and also a major event. This has been mainly to test demand, to kind of figure out, is there actually a place for this here in Haringey? And all of the events and the working group meetings have been very well attended. And some of the themes that have come up are not dissimilar to the work in Lambeth around experiences of health and wellbeing services, how to access community-based wellbeing services, as well as just developing community, having a central space for people to access where they know there can be other people who look like them, who understand their experiences. In terms of my future hopes, firstly, it's just that the work continues to be funded and that it exists. There aren't many opportunities in North London like this, and it's great to see that the response when people come here to know that actually there is an organisation that is Black-led, that is inclusive, that embraces them. The staff aren't necessarily LGBTQ+, but the fact that they are open, willing to hear their needs and willing to work with them is incredibly powerful.
Our LGBTQ+ group that we formulated in partnership with Black Thrive Lambeth, specifically Nathan Lewis, really came from the understanding that the LGBTQ+ community in Haringey is disproportionately affected from two different sides of things. So not only are they affected disproportionately because they're Black, they're also affected and discriminated against because they're from this community. So this work was really important for us to formulate and prioritise to ensure that that community within our borough is being properly supported and that gets to have their say, with the hopes that we can create more awareness and really make change throughout the borough.
I think it was important for Black Thrive Haringey to work with the Mental Health Trust because we knew that the Patient and Carers Race Equity Framework would be implemented, and we wanted to ensure that we were part of what that looked like in the North London Foundation Trust. PCREF is a real opportunity for us to change the outcomes of the Black community. Black Thrive Haringey has been integral in the work that the Trust has done when it has been thinking about to improve those outcomes for the people that live in Haringey. Black Thrive Haringey is part of the PCREF working group. We have also been able to train up some of the Trust staff in cultural competency training, and we've also been able to share our docufilms so that they can really hear the lived experience of those that have used the mental health system in Haringey. Currently, we are working with the North London Foundation Trust to review their equality, diversity and inclusion strategy. We've been able to do this with the assistance of our local Mind neighbours, and what we are hoping to do is to allow those that have used the services of the Mental Health Trust to get their opportunity to feedback and use their voice.
Like many NHS trusts, the North London Foundation Trust aspires to be an anti-racist organisation. And that's really important because of the communities we serve and our staff as well. We know that structural racism, institutional racism and other forms of racism really affects people's health and well-being, and we can see that through the inequalities data and through the data around mental health disparities, where, for example, Black men are more likely to be sectioned under the Mental Health Act. So by not taking an anti-racism approach, we are doing a disservice to our staff and to our service users and our communities. At the Trust, our approach around anti-racism has 3 principles to prioritise anti-racism. So it's about going further than just having a statement and just talking about it, having some firm actions on what you're going to do and prioritising it in terms of your time and your resources. The second aspect is how we listen and grow. So how we're using data, the voices of our staff, communities and service users to actually make change. And then thirdly, act and review. So we need to take action, we need to look at what works, we need to review what we do, and if things don't work, we need to do it again and continuously improve. So anti-racism is embedded in the way we do things as an old London way, ensuring equity, inclusion and fairness in what we do. Black Thrive Haringey is closer to the communities. They're a trusted organisation, particularly for the Black communities. So if we want to listen and grow, we need to partner and work more closely with organisations yourselves so that we can understand those issues. So I'm really grateful for the work that Black Thrive do in terms of supporting us with our PCREF and other plans as well. And it opens us up to new communities and listening to those voices. So I think it's really important to work closely with an organisation like Black Thrive.
I think it's important that the community are involved and not just consulted, because effectively we are doing this for the community. It doesn't make sense for us to go back to the community and say, oh, look what we've done for you, and we haven't even asked them what do they want.
I've learned throughout working at Black Thrive Haringey that it is extremely important to build good relationships with the systems. That way you're able to actually influence direct change, but also building and maintaining these relationships means you can almost become like the bridge between these systems and the community. And that way we're able to foster safe spaces with the community, but also bring them on board and get their say, get their feedback, and then feed that directly into these systems to try and ignite that change. I think when you're building these relationships with the system, I think it's always really important to be clear about where you're coming from and what your aims are, and being strong and firm in that, but also being open to the collaboration, being open to seeing change, and then just being able to curate a great relationship and be that support for them if they are truly working towards actually making change.
We have been working with Diverse Cymru for a number of years. We first met on a Black leadership residential in Crete called Ubuntu. And it has been a pleasure getting to know Dr. Charles Willie and then learning about his award-winning cultural competency training, which we have been accredited to now deliver in England.
What is cultural competency training? It's an opportunity for people to self-reflect on an ongoing basis. Because you can't train this, it's about people being able to not only help understand, raise awareness, but importantly, make a difference. And that difference is something that's not necessarily going to happen overnight. But what it does have to be is that nature of stepping back, looking at what you do and how you do it, and making sure that there's equity in the services you provide, and indeed the actions that you take. It was almost like a breath of fresh air when in 2021, I think, met up with Lynette, and since then have worked alongside Lynette in mind. And when I say a breath of fresh air, very similar to what I said about wanting to make a difference and an ongoing difference. It's the same mindset that Mind Haringey has of wanting to help people and help them move forward positively. What I must say is that in terms of Lynette, Shannon, the people we started and met with, I've been so pleased that they and the concepts that they have and the views they have about making progress, very similar to my thoughts and indeed my intentions. And there are two things that are very fundamental. One is the way in which people with their biases can get away with so much. And what we actually need to do is, yes, start that process, but most importantly is not just see this as a tick box and a one-off, but the ongoing process of challenging and making changes. So the impact it has is for everybody being able to measure progress, which is something that's never been done properly in my view.
The cultural competence training that we are now excitedly able to deliver across England and the UK really came about from our partnership with our Welsh partners. I remember when I actually sat this training and I saw the elements and the things it covered, I was really blown away. The cultural competency training actually covers key issues like unconscious bias. It really digs into the disparities. There's case studies, it's super interactive, quizzes, etc. So I myself really understood how informative this training was. And I was really honoured and excited that we were going to be able to deliver this across England.
The work of Black Thrive is being scaled up. And that means that we are going to take some of the work that we have been able to do in Haringey, Lambeth and across England to Wales and Scotland. So we're really looking forward to the opportunity to work even more closely with our partners in Wales, really raising the flag of race equity.
Backbone support is a very, very critical part of what we do at Black Thrive Haringey. We had a couple of projects where we had used a pot called the Innovation Pot to look at how we can support organizations or individuals who have great ideas, who want to put their ideas into the community and want to assist and help the community. So we then galvanize those projects.
So an example of recent of how we actually do our backbone support at Black Thrive Haringey would be our community mural project. Young local artists from our community reached out to us. She was currently studying at the London School of Muralism, and she wanted to come into Black Thrive Haringey, Mind in Haringey, to create a mural for us that would show our values and what we're about as an organisation. So she wanted to run a community mural project and get the community involved in the whole process, from the initial concept all the way through to actually painting the mural on our wall in our building. It was a great experience for sure, and it was just about us supporting her in being able to actually deliver this, getting the community involved, supporting the workshops, and then supporting the painting process. The community were really great, and their insights and feedback were brilliant and really helped towards the end image of our mural. The community wanted the space in our building to be more open, to feel positive with sunshine. They almost wanted it to feel like you were welcome, like entering your home when you was in the organisation. So really just listening to what the community wanted and implementing that. It was a really great process. So I think in Black Thrive Haringey, we've always been able to do our backbone support really well, whether it be an individual or organisation coming to us in the borough and they want to start a project, start a bit of work, or even if they just want to understand how to build something. We always ensure that we meet with them, and if we can't directly help them, then we always ensure we introduce them to other people. And I think it's just been great for myself and the team just being able to support these individuals that are from our community with their ideas to just ensure that they're able to succeed and that they feel supported.
What started off as one book has now multiplied into about 4. What started off as a bit of banter based on financial education for children has now stemmed into now business. In short, my books are story-driven novels with education within them. It started off as Key Stage 2. I have children myself who are in Key Stage 2. And I thought, you know what, with my profession or my background, let's say being in finance and business, how can I bring education, which is not taught in schools, to children, but then also implement some form of fun in that? I incorporated the finance and my expertise into novels, fantasy novels like what you'll see in Disney and stuff like that. One book turned into 2 books have now turned into 4, which is going to go into publishing. So that's the basis of the books. You know, it's funny, something that started off as a professional relationship has now become personal. I don't feel like I'm a client, but I've built a bond where we're now friends. And I feel that is what made it important, because it allowed me to bring my walls down, not see myself like a client, but now a friend that can be vulnerable in all aspects, knowing that I'm receiving help in a deeper level. Do you know what I mean? There's no right or wrongs with the approaches I'm doing. Plus the support is pushing me beyond my limits, coming into a community space, knowing that I'm breaking above my limitations in a space that I didn't think I'll ever be in. So the support that I'm getting there is something that is, I can't really explain it too tough. But all I can say, it's been an enjoyable journey. The experiences I've got from it and the relationships I've got within that is definitely on par with where I felt I wanted to be in my heart outside of the corporate field.
The work of Black Thrive Haringey is always exciting. So our next chapter really involves reaching out to other organisations that we know are involved in race equity and really starting to work together, share platforms and tell the system what the black community needs. Community assemblies are going to be a crucial part of our work going forward. Usually we would have an annual assembly where we would hold ourselves accountable to the community of Haringey, letting them know what we had achieved in any given year.
Moving forward, we're really going to prioritise circulating and marketing our app. We really want to get it out there for all communities, not just those in Haringey, but all black communities across the board in the UK. So I'm currently working with our teams to ensure we can actually roll out a marketing campaign, and I'm really looking forward to it. In regards to research, I know we've been planning for a while all of our new initiatives, and I'm just really looking forward to seeing how these projects come together, the insights that come out of them, and hopefully the change that is able to be made once we complete these research projects.
So as we travel down the Black Thrive Road, what was really, really good is organisations and individuals who see what we're doing want to join in and see the great work that we're doing and the change that we want to make in the lives of those people who are impoverished, are oppressed. And really just, we want to see people live a better life, and we want people who are willing to travel that journey with us.
In terms of system change, I want to eradicate systemic racism, and for that to happen, first and foremost, the system needs to acknowledge the systemic racism is at play. You know, it's taken us decades just to prove institutional racism. They came up with this joke about it could possibly be unwitting. Now in 1999, we'd let you have that. But in 2025, you can't have that no more. Because since then to today, institutional racism is still a reality and still at play. If it were unwitting in 1999, the system would have done things to remove it. The fact that you haven't says it's not unwitting. It says this is the system doing what the system needs to do. So we need to implement policies that explicitly address racial inequality. Tackle discrimination in institutions. That means we need to do it in a meaningful way. We need to understand historically that the first piece of anti-discrimination legislation in this country was the Race Relations Amendment Act. We shouldn't be bringing in all these other acts and watering down the act if we haven't delivered on the principles they were set up for in the first place. To eradicate systemic racism, we need an education system that is fit for purpose. Schools to start to be more proactive. They must adopt inclusive curricula that reflect Britain's diverse history and contributions from all racial groups. Basically, we need an education system that tells the truth. They're grooming our kids for the streets because they're not giving them opportunities and pathways to go through. So we need schools that educate and teachers that can teach. We need accountability. That means that all institutions must collect and analyze data on racial disparities to identify and address areas of concern. We need proper representation. That's increasing diversity in leadership roles across sectors ensures that decision making reflects the experiences and needs of all communities. We want representation that we select, not that white folks select and then tell us that he's a black representative because he happens to look as if he's got the same skin color as me. We don't just want them to have the skin color, we want them to have the heart, mind and soul to be our representatives. So these are the ways that by recognizing and addressing systemic racism, British society can move forward together towards greater equity and inclusion. However, this requires sustained effort, political will, and a commitment to justice from all levels of society. So for now, I wear a t-shirt that says defund the police. When I talk about defunding the police, what I'm talking about is reprioritization. They get billions, literally billions of pounds every year in their budget, whilst everybody else is living a time of austerity. Give us a portion of that money, just 1% of that money, and we can make such a difference, because the money that you're investing in police is invested in an institutionally racist organisation that's using every penny that it gets to find ways to criminalise black people en masse. And they've done it ever since the SOS laws. We see them doing it today with joint enterprise. They find, and they did it with the gang narrative, they did it with the gangs matrix. All of a sudden we have those gangs out there. Give us the money. Organisations like Black Thrive Haringey, organisations like Tottenham Right, organisations like Forensic Architecture, and we can show you how to really make a difference. We will be the difference that you all want to see.
I just want to see change for our children and our grandchildren, and for them not to have to go through the things that we had to in growing up, which was really learning how to survive.
I think my hope, just overall, is just to actually see change come to fruition, like lasting change where we no longer live in a world where we even have to consider these things because it is fair and our communities are treated fairly.
Yeah, I think my hope for black people in the black community is that Black Thrive no longer exists.
Yeah.
Through the work that we've done through black people, as Lynette said, thriving and not just surviving. That's my hope.
If I had to sum up in one phrase what Black Thrive Haringey means, I would say we're unstoppable, we're relentless, and we're here until we effect the change we want to see.
So we really just wanted to tell our story the best way we know how, which is through storytelling. And we really hope anyone that's viewing this documentary understands more thoroughly what our work is about, what our plans are for the future, and just who we are as individuals.